Decades of living alone, and I still can't get used to the loneliness. I muttered with a sigh. It's been 30 years since my divorce, after my ex-wife cheated on me. Our marriage lasted only about 2 years. She was so beautiful that she was the talk of the neighborhood, and I, with my low income, short stature, and limited education, felt unworthy of her. That's probably why I couldn't do anything but step aside quietly when I found out she was cheating on me with her handsome ex-boyfriend. I just accepted it. After all, I thought he was more suitable for her. I could have demanded alimony, but that felt even more humiliating, so I didn't. I just wanted her out of my life, and honestly, I didn't want anything to do with her anymore. But that's all in the past now. However, I haven't even had a girlfriend in the many years since my divorce. Simply put, I'm just not attractive. Even marrying my ex-wife felt almost like a miracle. Now, at 60, I've been made to retire early from my company, and I live a modest life alone, working temp jobs without touching my retirement savings. On my days off, there are times when I don't speak to anyone all day, and if the break goes on too long, I worry if I'll be able to speak properly when I return to work. I spend my time watching TV alone, eating alone. What a boring life I lead. Sometimes I think that, but there's nothing I can do about it. Of course, there was a time when I thought about remarrying. But when I attended matchmaking parties, women didn't show interest in me, and the staff at marriage agencies seemed perplexed by me, a man with no notable qualities. It's not that my standards were high, but probably because my specs were visibly low. By my late 40s, I had given up on remarriage. Then, one day, as I was living this dull life, my middle school friend Mike invited me for a drink. Mike is the same age as me, and like me, he's divorced. But he's been in a relationship for 6 months and is living together, planning to get married soon. I'm envious. Mike is a bit timid but a gentle guy, and being someone with few friends, he's an important drinking buddy to me. As soon as we met, Mike said, "Don't you ever think about remarrying, John? Senior remarriages are becoming quite popular now." Hey, cut it out with the senior stuff. I'm still young at 60. Well, there was a time I wanted to remarry, but I've given up on that now. Then Mike flashed a sly smile and said, "So, you're not completely against remarrying, huh?" And he pulled out a photo from his bag. "Hey John, what do you think about meeting this lady for a matchmaking date?" What? I was so surprised by the word matchmaking that I almost spat out my beer. The woman in the photo was introduced by Mike's aunt, who enjoys setting up marriages as a hobby. When Mike told her he had a girlfriend, she asked if he knew any good men to introduce. The woman was 3 years younger than us. From the photo, she looked a bit grumpy, as if she didn't really want to remarry. "But, are you sure I'm okay? And from this photo, she doesn't seem eager to marry," I replied. Mike confidently said, "You'll be fine, John. Just meet her once. I think you two could get along well." I wasn't particularly against her, so I decided to go through with the matchmaking. On the day, I wore a suit I had prepared for the occasion and went to a fancy restaurant. There I saw Mike's aunt and the woman from the photo, looking slightly displeased. She saw me with a serious face and said in a soft voice, "My name is Grace. It's nice to meet you." Nervously, I introduced myself too. Throughout the matchmaking, Grace and I barely spoke, and Mike's aunt kept a conversation going. Whenever I tried to talk, Grace just nodded, looking away with a hint of disgust whenever our eyes met. She seemed eager to leave. Seeing her like that, I honestly started to feel disinterested too. I guess as adults, we're supposed to put on a good front, at least outwardly. I thought she was beautiful, but probably not nice in personality. After a while, I stopped trying to start a conversation. Seeing us not talking at all, Mike's aunt suggested, Why don't you two take a walk outside for a change of scenery? It's warm today, and the view here is beautiful," and practically forced us out of the room to the courtyard. Then Grace suddenly spoke up. "You probably just want to leave early, don't you?" To which I replied, annoyed, "Isn't it you who want to leave? I'm not here reluctantly, forced into this matchmaking date." This was the truth. I did harbor a slight hope for this matchmaking date. But Grace said, "Maybe you were hoping for someone younger, weren't you? I came today because I couldn't say no to her, but honestly, I'm enjoying my work right now and don't feel like getting married. Sorry." Surprised by this unexpected turn of events, I thought to myself about what kind of life she must have had, but ended up laughing, thinking that's just how life is. On the way back from the courtyard, I asked Grace to send a refusal on my behalf. But she said she didn't want to reject me outright, as it would be embarrassing for her, and suggested meeting up 3 more times before deciding, to which I agreed. A few days later, out of respect for Mike, I decided not to lie and actually met up with Grace 3 times as we had agreed. I thought it was just a temporary relationship, so I might as well enjoy it. That's what I had in mind. Surprisingly, Grace and I had similar tastes in food, and we ended up going to a seafood restaurant we both loved. Grace showed up in casual clothes, but being beautiful, she looked good in anything. While I was staring at her, she suddenly asked, "Do you think my outfit is tacky?" Being with Grace was comfortable in the best way. She was beautiful, but I could talk to her without feeling tense. We had a lot in common, probably because we were close in age. On our second date, we went to a movie and then to a stylish bar with a great atmosphere. She was like a different person from when we first met, talking a lot more. Grace, like me, was divorced, and it turned out her ex-husband had cheated on her. He was a successful entrepreneur, good at his job, and also handsome. Apparently, he was quite popular with women. Maybe that's why she had become distrustful of men. Mike's aunt, who knew her, was worried and set up the matchmaking date. When I shared my own story of divorce with her, we found our lives had many similarities, and we ended up laughing together. It had been a long time since I'd spent so much enjoyable time with a woman. Preparing for our third date, I felt sad thinking it would be the end. Then I received a text on my cell phone. It was from Grace. Reading it, I was shocked. "I'm sorry, I can't make it today. I can't decide when the next time will be. I'm sorry." That's. I tried calling her, but her phone just rang. I texted her, but there was no reply. Had something happened? Or maybe she just became busy. Since we weren't officially dating, I couldn't keep contacting her too persistently. For the next few days, I spent my time in a gloomy mood. Then suddenly, I got a call from Mike's aunt. Hearing what she said, I was stunned. Grace's mother passed away. Grace's mother had died the day before she texted me. Her father had passed away when she was young, and her mother had been ill and in home care, but her condition worsened suddenly and she died. After that, Grace was so shocked and exhausted from caring for her mother, she quit her job and almost became a recluse. Grace and I couldn't meet in person, but we texted each other several times a month. It was just trivial things like what we ate that day, but I kept texting her, fearing if I stopped, she might disappear from my life. After about a year of this, Grace suddenly contacted me and asked to meet at a cafe. Grace looked a bit worn out, but her smile was just as bright as it had been a year ago. "I'm sorry for worrying you," she said. She told me that she dreamt of her mother, who said she shouldn't grieve forever and that she needed to move forward with her life. Watching Grace speak through teary eyes, I reflected on my own feelings from the day of the matchmaking date until now. I think Grace probably just sees me as a friend, but at some point, I had started seeing her as more than that. My feelings for Grace grew stronger day by day. I couldn't keep my feelings to myself any longer. Grace, do you remember our agreement to go on 3 dates after the matchmaking date? We've only had 2 so far. Would it be okay if I asked you out for our third? Grace looked at me with moist eyes and nodded gently. Then, the next Sunday, I invited her to a restaurant to express my feelings. The restaurant wasn't fancy, but it was one of Grace's favorites. As soon as we sat down, I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "I've fallen for you, Grace. Would you officially go out with me?" Grace, with wide eyes, responded, "I thought you only saw me as a friend." It seemed we had both felt the same way. We laughed together. Then she said, "I like you too, John. When I was down and staying at home, your regular messages really encouraged me. Thank you for being there during my tough times. If it's okay with you, I would like to date you." I immediately called Mike to share the news that Grace and I were now a couple. Mike laughed and said, "I always thought Grace and you would be perfect for each other." It turned out that Mike had a hunch we would get along well after hearing about her from his aunt and had encouraged her to go for the matchmaking date. "Thanks to you, Mike, I feel like I have hope in my life again," I said. "Of course, John, you've been my precious friend since middle school. I always wanted you to be happy," he replied. We had indeed been friends for a long time since our school days. "Remember when I was bullied in school because of my timid nature? You wrote me letters when I didn't want to go to school. They were about trivial things, but they meant a lot to me. I still remember your kindness. I want to be friends with you even when we're old men, and I want you to be happy," Mike said. I had almost forgotten those school days and murmured, "Did that really happen?" Finally, Mike ended the call by saying, "Be happy with Grace. I'm going to be happy with my girlfriend too. Let's meet up sometime and share our love stories over a drink." I felt incredibly grateful to Mike. I realized the importance of friendship, no matter the age. Grace and I continued our relationship smoothly, and about 6 months later, we started living together. Meanwhile, Mike married his girlfriend and seemed very happy when he told me about it. Hearing about Mike's marriage, I started thinking about marrying Grace, and about a year into our relationship, I proposed to her, and she was thrilled. We didn't have a wedding ceremony, but we became husband and wife. I never imagined someone like me could have such happy days. I plan to enjoy the rest of my life to the fullest with Grace.